I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday Night Podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, again, we're going to forego the weekly guest, and we're going to talk about baseball. We're going to talk about our All Big Country Preps positional rankings for baseball, the preseason rankings, which are always getting a good look. People are very interested in the upcoming baseball season. It's been a popular addition to the website.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way for us to get familiar with the players we're going to be covering a whole lot this year, and I think it's a good way for readers to kind of get an idea of the players who are going to be, making an impact for their respective teams. And it's always fun to put those out. And it's always fun to kind of see the response to those, and so far the response has been super positive, so that's been cool. But I know that you and I are both excited. We did our softball podcast last week. We're doing baseball this week, and obviously a lot of basketball going on right now with the playoffs, and we're definitely paying attention to that. So check out the site, and you'll see lots of basketball content for the playoffs. But I think we are excited to get baseball and softball going. We're both big fans of those two sports, and it's always fun to kind of get to this point of the season as well.
Before we get into this week's show, we need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. All right, and with that, we're going to jump into our preseason position rankings for baseball, and we're going to start with the pitching staff, which in recent years have been pretty strong in the big country, and this year is no exception, Dan. We've got a lot of depth, a lot of talent.
Yeah, a really talented group, and I encourage all of y'all to check that out on the site. We have our top 10 as well as others to watch, and there are some really impressive names on there. So make sure you check those out. But just for the purpose of this, we'll take a look at some of the top guys. And this is a real star-studded list. Once you get to that top 5, top 3 range, looking at number 3, you've got Wiley's Brooks Gay, a kid who was outstanding for the Bulldogs last year. He'll be pitching for ACU next year. As a junior, went 8-2 with a 2.29 ERA. Whip just over 1 and a 76-13 strikeout to walk ratio and over 64 in a third inning. So a guy who's a really, really good right-handed pitcher. And then below those two guys who have really become household names for what they've done in the area, with Stephenville's Rhys Elston, who led them all the way to the state semifinals last year in Class 4A, and then Tate Yardley at number 1 for Jim Ned, a kid who will be playing for Texas Tech, which is a very good Division I program. So that tells you the type of talent that he has.
Yeah, with Elston, who helped Stephenville reach the state tournament last year. One unique thing about him, he reminds me he reminds an old timer like me of a left-hander that used to throw for the Houston Astros back in the 80s by the name of Bob Nepper, he's got a very deliberate, slow wind up. But he's now Nepper was more of a control type pitcher, but Rhys has that very slow, deliberate motion, and then when he releases it, it's got some serious pop to it. He had one of the best strikeouts to walk ratios in the area last year, ended up 7-2 with a 1.78 ERA, and really turned out to be an ace. And Yardley, that guy's just got ice water in his veins. He's a clutch performer, and that sub 1 ERA, but what can you ask? And he's bringing it right around 90 miles per hour. They've gunned him at about 90, 91.
Yeah, both those guys are a ton of fun to watch. I got to see Elston in the playoffs, and he had just an incredible run through the playoffs to get them to state. And what's crazy about that 1.78 ERA is that is with a pretty rocky outing in the state semifinals. I mean, his ERA was around 1.5 going into that, and it blew up a little bit just because he got hit around in the state semis. But a great year for him, and I'm excited to see what he does as a senior. Same with Tate. Tate Yardley had Jim Ned knocking on the door for the region final last year, and I'd expect them to be in that mix again this year as well. He's just a really good pitcher, and like you said, a guy that really brings it. So these two, really all 3 of those in the top 3 are going to be fun to follow this year.
Okay, and with that, we're going to jump over to our catchers. And again, the catching position in recent years, we've had quite a few good ones, and again this year, it's no exception.
Yeah, and a pretty diverse group when you look at kind of strengths as far as offensive strength or defensive strength. And again, if you check out the top 10, you'll see some kids who are who really are very talented. It's a very talented group. Looking at just the top 3, we have Aiden Reyes from Breckenridge at number 3, a kid who was a first-team All-District 7.38 pick last year, batted .429 and 70 at-bats with a .534 on-base percentage, 5 doubles, 3 triples, a home run, and 31 RBIs did a really good job for Breck last year, and he's back as a senior this year. Then you keep going. You got Braden Lewis for Jim Ned, who was the defensive MVP for his district, District 6-3A, and also hit the ball well. And then our top catcher is a kid at Wiley who's going to be playing D1 baseball for Louisiana Lafayette next year, and Landon Williams, who I got to see quite a bit last year. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a better defensive catcher. He is an outstanding receiver, and the kid has a cannon for an arm, very, very strong, accurate arm. And so I think you look at those top three, it's pretty good, pretty good group, pretty good company to be in.
And how tough is this Williams kid? I mean, he caught more than 200 innings last year, 215 innings last year. I remember catching in batting practice just to see what it was like. Just catch a couple innings of batting practice, a couple of batters, I should say. And I was like, you can have this. You can have this. Catching 215 innings, that guy is tough.
Yeah, I sit down to catch my son for about 25 pitches, and I wake up sore the next day. So, granted,
You're an old man. You're an old man.
A little older than Landon is, but I used to catch some back in the day. But yeah, Landon is an absolute Iron Man. He loves being back there. He doesn't want to break. And last year he caught, all but just a handful of innings for them last season, and I'd expect him to do the same this year. And in addition to being a really good defensive catcher, he's also a threat at the plate. Hit almost 300 last year with 11 doubles, a triple, and a home run, 25 RBIs. So he's a kid that can really play. And then look at Braden Lewis at Jim Ned, same way. He batted 443 last year, in addition to what he provided defensively, which earned him defensive MVP honors. So those are a couple of kids who are going to be really fun to watch and really kind of spearhead that catcher position for the area.
Most of, at least a lot of the baseball studs you're going to find in the infield. A lot of great athletes, and it's the same story with softball. A lot of great athletes are in the infield. There's a lot of interest in our infielders, and we always get buco traffic with the preseason rankings for infielders in the area. This year is no exception. We got a great traffic run with people coming to the website and taking a look at our infield rankings. And why don't you take our viewers to the top three now?
Top three. One other thing about the infield before we start is you see a lot of kids who kind of moonlight between pitching and shortstop. That's kind of a common trend, and we've got a couple of those on this list. But our number three is just purely an infielder. That's Trey Lopez from Daly, Anakin, who was an all-state pick last year, batted .519 with a .684 on base percentage. And the interesting thing too is he did basically all of this all season long with a shoulder injury, which is really impressive when you look at what he did. 6 doubles, a home run, 17 RBIs, 37 steals, and was really a leader of what was a good De Leon team, a team that won a district championship while playing injured. So he's very fitting there at 3. And then you look at the next two, and you've got a couple of kids.
I'm going to interrupt you. How underrated? I mean, how off the radar and underrated is that De Leon baseball team? I don't know that the big country really understands how well that program has developed in recent years. De Leon has really emerged as a smaller school power. It's something to really keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, that last year was their 3rd straight district title, and Lopez was a huge part of that. And then you look at the numbers 2 and 1. It's kids that you'll also find on our pitching list, including Tate Yardley, who we just mentioned is our top pitcher, is also one of our top shortstops in the area, and particularly one of our top offensive shortstops. He batted .521 last year with an .819 slugging percentage. Just an enormous season. 13 doubles, 3 triples, 3 home runs, 26 RBIs, 45 runs, 18 steals, and just 94 at bats. In addition to what he does as a pitcher, it's no surprise why he's talked about in these spots. And then number 1 is a kid who may have the best pure swing in all of the Big Country Preps coverage area, and that's Brock's Peyton Schaefer, their first baseman, who's also a very good defensive first baseman and a good pitcher. But he is an outstanding hitter. Last year, he batted .459 with 7 doubles, 5 triples, 3 home runs, 33 RBIs, 34 runs, and 22 stolen bases. Was a big part of their run to state. Unfortunately, got hurt at the end of last year, but he's healthy now, so that'll be good. And he's going to be a fun one to watch as well. This is a kid that can really swing the bat. If you like watching good hitters, he's one to watch.
It's interesting to note the rivalry. They didn't play last year, but the rivalry that exists between Jim, Ned, and Brock it extends into baseball. They did not play last year, but the rivalry is there. And I get asked questions by Brock people about Jim Ned. I get asked questions about about Brock by the Jim Ned fans, and they're always kind of wanting to know what the other guys got. And I don't know. It's interesting to see how two schools that far apart have developed into this rivalry. It'd be interesting to see them play this year.
And then that's interesting is we kind of thought they were going to be on a collision course last year because Jim Ned did not lose until the fourth round of the playoffs. And then they lost one round shy of their opportunity to play Brock for the region championship. So I know they're going to be gearing to get back there. And if they do, there's a good chance they will face Brock. And it's kind of that way in all sports. So we just, earlier this week, we just had the Brock and Jim Ned girls basketball teams play in the third round of the playoffs. And we've had their football teams play in very important games each of the last 2 years. So yeah, I think when you have two programs that are as complete as those two athletic programs are, you get a lot of matchups, and it does kind of develop a rivalry, which is kind of interesting given the distance between those two towns. But it's no surprise when you look at the teams those are fielding in this baseball season. I think you're going to get an opportunity, hopefully, to see those two play, because these are two very good baseball teams with a lot coming back.
Sure. Well, and then in that region, there's always some X factors. Shallow water's in there. Wall is going to be in there, as a big factor always. And so there's never any guarantees.
Do not sleep on the early Longhorns. The early Longhorns.
No, that's an emerging power right there.
Yeah, they bring back a bunch. They darn near knocked off Jim Ned last year in a 1-game playoff and played a really good game, 3-2.
I was there.
Yeah,
I was there. Yeah, you better believe early is for real.
They got a couple of really good pitchers too. That's the thing that's gonna be really fun in this region is the teams from our area in this region. There's a ton of pitching, and each of the teams that kind of have that opportunity have a chance, I think, to pitch their way deep into the playoffs because they've got 2 or 3, 4 quality arms. It's going to be fun to watch. But I do think that Jim Ned and Brock are, in my estimation, the favorites in our area. But do not sleep on the early Longhorns. That's a good baseball team.
All right, now we're going to jump out into the outfield grass, Dan, where 2 of our top 3 players are from a very good Anson ball club that nearly reached the state tournament last year and is going to be one of the favorites to get there this year.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a little bit from last year's team, a couple of kids who were key players, but they return a whole lot. And 2 of these in the outfield are really big parts of that. Our number 3 is Riley Pippen, a kid who plays center field for him, does a great job out there. He batted .337 last year with a .953 OPS. Had 4 home runs, 5 doubles, 25 RBIs, 21 runs, 14 steals while fielding his position at a .929 clip. Just a really good, reliable center fielder. Also does some pitching for him. And then down the list, we've got number 2 is a familiar name. We just talked about him in the pitchers list, and that's Rhys Elston, who plays some outfield when he's not pitching and really does a good job out there. And is an excellent hitter. Batted 400 last year with an on-base percentage near 500, with 5 doubles, 2 triples, and 16 RBIs as a junior. So he's a guy that really helps them in all phases. And then our number 1 outfielder is a kid who's also on our pitchers list, who's just a great player and has been for years now. And that's Trevor Miller from Anson.
Yeah. So you see Trevor Miller play, and it doesn't take very long for you to go, now that kid's just born to play. He's just born to be a hardball player. Mm-hmm. He's born to be a baseball player. He knows what he's doing out there. He's got the talent, and he really handles the bat well. He's just good at everything that he does out there.
Yeah, and he's another one that is an exceptional pitcher. I mean, he's a guy that is really their ace on the mound, but when he goes out to the outfield, he does a great job out there as well, playing primarily right field. Last year, he filled that position at .929 clip while batting .417 with a 1,148 OPS, which anytime you get over 1,000, you're talking about a really good number there. And then 6 doubles, 3 triples, 3 home runs, 45 RBIs, 39 runs, 20 steals, and that earned him offensive MVP honors out of his district. But this Anson team is definitely one to watch. That's a team that got a lot back, that came within 1 win last year of going to state. And I think that they've got a team they feel like has an opportunity to maybe get them there this year. So it's going to be fun to see if they can accomplish that. But in any event, this is going to be a team that makes a run, I think.
All right. And with that, we're going to take a look at some of the top teams now in our area. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts throughout the school year. Also for the Love of the Game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, KATX 97.7 FM out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, KWKQ 94.7 FM out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breckenridge, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, new or used, give Rob a shout. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Call him at 254-559-2266. That's Rob Durham up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And finally, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give him a shout at 325-669-5153 or go to his website at philhillproperties.com. All right. And with that, we're going to take a look around the area at some of the top ball clubs that we see as we see it. We'll start at the 1A level, Dan, where in recent years, the big country has started to produce some quality baseball. And it's surprising to me at that level to see quality baseball because just of the shortage of manpower. But, programs in recent years like IRA, et cetera, Baird that have fielded good ball clubs. Last year, we saw Westbrook have a good season. We saw Baird again fielding a good ball club. We're seeing decent 1A baseball in this area. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Westbrook. They came one round from making it to state last year, lost to eventual region championship Nazareth. In the game 2 of that one, they got beat up a little bit on game 1, but the game 2 of that one was a 2-1 game, which when you talk about 1A baseball, a 2-1 game is not real common, but that's good baseball that they're playing. But you mentioned that I think the teams to watch when you talk about Westbrook, you talk about Baird, you talk about Ira. And another one I think we definitely need to keep an eye on is Cross Plains, which had a real nice season to run to the region quarterfinals before losing to Westbrook in that round. So I think all 4 of those have got really quality teams, and I'll be interested to see that Westbrook group had such a good senior class go through it where they were good at everything last year. They've had a pretty good follow-up this year. They've still got a good group, obviously with the state football championship. That tells you what kind of talent they've got going through that school. So I'm excited to see if Westbrook can repeat the success they had last year, but they've got a lot of talent on that team.
At the 2A level, and granted, we spend a lot of time talking about the 3A teams in the big country. They get a lot of attention, but we might have more overall depth of quality teams at the 2A level. There's a number of very good programs. Albany is a quality program. Holly is a quality program. So is Forsan. Yeah. Last year, and Cisco's out there as well. That's another quality 2A program. De Leon is another. Last year, however, the Anson Tigers emerged as the 2A team in the area to beat. Now, they're going to have a lot of teams nipping at their heels. I'll let you go ahead and go through some of those. But that Anson Ball Club came within an eyelash of getting to state last year, and I think they're probably going to be the team to beat again this year.
Yeah, I think this team, when you talk about some of the talent they got back, and we talked about it when we went through some of those individuals, this is a team that I think has to feel good about their chances of making another deep run. And last year, like you said, lost in 3 games to eventual state champion New Deal. So I'm sure they felt like they had an opportunity if they could have gotten through that series to win state, which would have been a huge accomplishment. But I think you are right. When you look at 2A in this area, that's the classification we've had maybe the most success in. When you talk about what Stanford did back in the day, Anson's been to state. Holly's had some really nice teams. De Leon, you mentioned. So I think that's going to be fun to watch. This region 1, 2A is always a ton of fun to watch because it's usually our teams competing for the opportunity to play either in the semifinals or eventually in the championship. When you talk about, particularly in recent years with Albany, who also had a state run. With Anson, with Holly was real young last year, but they still made it to the region quarterfinals, had a great finish to the season. So I think they're going to be taking a step forward this year in terms of overall strength. So it should be a fun region race. I still think Anson is the team to beat, particularly with what they've got back, but you can't ever count out Albany. Obviously they lost Cade Neve, their ace pitcher, but they've got Cole Chapman, who's their quarterback during the football seasons, and an excellent pitcher as well. So they've got some depth, and then they've got a couple of really, really strong offensive players back as well. So it's going to be fun. I like 2A baseball once you get to the playoffs. Once you're starting to see really good 2A baseball, it's a lot of fun to watch because there's a lot of talent in this region and a lot of parity, a lot of teams that are really competitive that you kind of start getting some rivalries built. Yes. With a lot of our teams have played New Deal in recent years is in those important games, late rounds with the chance to go to state. So I expect to kind of see something similar this year.
Yeah, we have a lot of depth of talent in the Class 2A level. It's going to be a fun bracket. In Class 3A, got quite a bit of depth as well. There's a number of very good programs out there. We've talked at length about Jim Ned. We've talked at length about Brock. Those are 2 of the teams that we're going to have to be keeping a close eye on this year. But then there's Clyde. Clyde's a quality program. Early is a quality program. The Wall Hawks are a quality program. Ballinger's put fielded a good ball club of late. So this is going to be, I mean, it's going to be an interesting region in the Class 3A level as well. Wall is expecting to be better this year, and they went a couple of rounds deep last year. So, if they run into Jim Ned or Brock, you're going to have a very tough hurdle to get past. For us to see that Brock Jim Ned matchup, the Wall Hawks are out there, Early's out there. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned Early. That's kind of my dark horse. I think this Early team has the pieces necessary to really challenge those area favorites in Jim Ned and Brock rather. And we saw it last year. Like I said, I mean, Early darn near knocked off Jim Ned last year. Lost that game 3-2 rather, in a 1-game playoff. But Wall is going to be interesting. They don't have a ton of returning starters, but that's a program that kind of just reloads. So you kind of expect them to be good each and every year. So they'll probably be in that mix. And then you mentioned Clyde. Clyde's one of those that's become a really solid program in recent years. And another kind of dark horse type team, and it is that Ballinger team. I think Ballinger is going to be interesting. They've got several players going through our those position rankings lists. You start to kind of see some teams. You see some trends develop as far as teams that have some of those names that you're consistently talking about at different positions. And Ballinger was kind of ones that kind of surprised me a little bit. They've got a lot of talent back as well. So they're one to watch as well. But Region 1-3A is always a fun region, particularly because our teams usually play such a huge role in deciding, who goes to state out of it. And I think this year will be exactly the same. We've got 3 or 4 teams with an opportunity, in my opinion, to win a region championship. And anytime that's the case going into a season, it's a lot of fun because you know that there's going to be some really good baseball played down the stretch.
I'll be surprised if you or I are not at Dell Diamond, in the early summer. I would be surprised if we're not there.
Yeah. I mean, I've been out there each of the last 2 years with teams capable of winning state championships. I saw Wall win it a couple years ago, and then several years ago now, I guess, because with the COVID season knocking out the 2020 season. But and then I saw Brock. They had an opportunity. They ran into a really good pitcher and got bounced in semifinals. But that Brock team had a state championship ceiling as well. So I agree with you. I think, I mean, you look at Brock, you look at Jim Ned, and again, Early's the one to watch. Early's a team that I think is going to be knocking right on that door. It'll be interesting to see if maybe one of those can get back to Dell Diamond, and it would not surprise me in the least.
All right, Class 4A, Stephenville has to be listed as the team to beat. They reached state last year. They've got a lot of their talent back this year, including their pitching. There are some dark horses in there that might create an interesting bracket. Snyder has been fielding a good ball club of late. I would like to see Brownwood take a step forward after kind of a rebuilding campaign last year. We shall see. But Stephenville in the 4A level is the team to beat at this moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you look at what they did last year with what they have coming back. I mean, anytime you've got a true ace in Rhys Elston returning, you're going to have a chance to win every game he pitches. So that's a big deal once you get to the playoffs in particular. But I do think that the teams, the dark horses, Snyder's got a really strong program. Their record may not have been, as quite as shiny as it's usually been, but they made it to the area round last year and had a chance to advance past that. They lost a couple of close games and otherwise would have made the region quarterfinals. And then I do think Brownwood's going to be a team to watch. I think that Brownwood, and a big reason for that is they've got a sophomore pitcher, Gavin Brandstetter, who really showed some really nice things last year as a freshman. Was a first team all district pick. He's going to be a kid that's 6'2" already as a sophomore, throwing in the low to mid 80s. He's one to watch. I think he's going to be one of those types of kids that, as he develops, is going to be one of those guys that gives his team a chance to win every game he pitches. And they've got several other young guys at key positions that are kind of growing up together. I do think you're going to see that program improve each and every year. I don't know if they're quite ready to challenge, a Stephenville this year, but I do think that, within the next 2 or 3 years, this Brownwood baseball team is going to be one to watch. So we'll see if they can take a step forward of what they did last year. They did make it to the playoffs, but they did lose in the bi-district round. So I'll be interested to see if they can maybe get to the area around the region quarterfinals this year. But they do have a good foundation with a really strong starter in the Brandstetter kid.
When Brownwood is fielding a good ball club, baseball's fun down there in that area. They draw well. Yeah. There's a lot of enthusiasm. It just makes area baseball more fun when Brownwood is playing well. let's jump over to Class 5A and talk a little bit about the locals, where the Wiley Bulldogs, Dan, were probably the biggest story we had on the local front in Abilene last year.
Yeah, I mean, last year Wiley advanced to the region semifinals where they lost to Aledo, and that series they lost game 1 in that series in 9 innings. I mean, they had an opportunity to really pull ahead in that series and push Aledo, and then once they lost that game, they ended up losing game 2 and falling there. But that was a really senior-led Wiley team. This year's team is going to have some new faces step up, but I do think that program. The interesting thing there is that baseball program. When you look the past 5-10 years, they've gotten to a point where it's become a reload program as well. They kind of the next class comes up ready to lead that program. So I think Wiley will be good this year, particularly when you got a kid like Brooks Gay as your top pitcher. I think that's a huge advantage. That I think they'll be very competitive this year again, with a chance to make another run. One thing I'm interested to see at the 5A level is if Cooper can take a step forward. I think that's going to be to me the big question. They had a pretty rocky year last year. Really didn't play as well as that program has been accustomed to playing. It went 10-18 overall with a 3-12 record in district, but they've got a new coach this year in Brandon Stover, who was a former ACU assistant, a former Cooper player. I'm going to be interested to see kind of what he brings. And they got some talent back. They lost some key players, but a kid in Colin Reed, who's one of their top basketball players, is also one of their best baseball players. He's going to be actually playing college baseball, but a shortstop and pitcher. He's going to be important for him. So we'll see. Cooper missed the playoffs last year, and that's a tough district they're in with the Lubbock schools. This is a really good district when you look at Wiley and some of those, Lubbock, Cooper, Lubbock, Monterey. There's some good baseball played in that district, so it'll be interesting to see if Cooper can get back to the playoffs. But I think that the picture for 5A is Wiley is still in our, as far as locals go, the class of that classification. But I do expect Cooper to be better this year.
All right, now we're going to jump up to Class 6A, where Abilene, let's face it, where they were in the Eagles were in rebuilding mode last year. The good news is there's only one direction to go, and that's up. They're going to get better.
Yeah, and they had a lot of young guys playing in key spots last year, so I think you'll see some improvement. Last year, a 5-26 record, obviously missed the playoffs, but they do have some guys back. One to mention is Diego Flores, an all-district player at shortstop and pitcher. He'll be the leader of that team, and I'll be interested to see just kind of what kind of strides they can make. I think we'll notice pretty quickly that they have made some improvement just because they were really young last year. They had a couple of seniors in key spots, but they had a lot of kids playing in spots as sophomores and things like that did kind of struggle and kind of went through some growing pains. So I'll be interested to see if maybe they can take a step forward. But yeah, a tough year last year. So like you said, I think improvements expected, and we'll see if they can make it.
Every school eventually is going to go through a year like that, where you're in a down cycle and rebuilding, and it was Abilene's turn. So
yeah,
they about wrap it up for the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we say adios, we want to remind you that we've got 3 separate subscription packages here at Big Country Preps. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual 12-month subscription where we knock that price down to $3 a month, $36 for a full year of Big Country high school athletic coverage.
We'd also like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, those are available for purchase. You can purchase a digital download for just $7, and we also have some prints and keepsakes available. So make sure you check those out. As you're scrolling through the site, you will notice pretty quickly that we take a lot of photos from these games we're out covering, and it's something we enjoy doing, something we're very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.